If you have a true strange or scary story you'd like to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. And of course, thank you. It's happened to me several times while driving. Times when I must have crashed, or worse. It was unavoidable, yet miraculously, somehow I didn't. Once, I was driving straight at a three-way intersection with my child in the car. I was on the street going straight with another street ending perpendicular at the one that I was on. There were no stop signs, so the street going straight had the right-of-way. A car turning onto the street from the other would have to yield. Noticing I had the right-of-way, I didn't think about it. Just drove straight through the intersection, only slightly distracted because I was talking with my son in the car. I was about to pass the street meeting mine on the right. Except that, too late, I saw another car come through the intersection on my right and turn toward me, attempting to make a left-hand turn, but right where I was. It was clear the driver hadn't slowed to see if a car was going through. They just plowed through to make their left turn as they would if another car was not there. At the rate of speed that each of us was going, and as close as our cars were to one another, I could see that it was inevitable that we were going to crash. I hit the brake, but there just wasn't enough time to avoid the collision. I was literally about 3 inches from the middle of the other car that I was going to T-bone it. As I braced for impact, nothing. My car hadn't yet completely stopped, but the other car was suddenly way past me. Like I said, doing all I could to try to avoid the crash, it was impossible to not collide. Yet somehow in a mere blink, we did. We both stopped for a minute full of adrenaline. I looked over at the other driver and saw that she looked as confused as I was. Another time, I was driving north on Interstate 5 in California, somewhere probably near Bakersfield. As it is for most of the length of the interstate, there were 2 lanes and many cars. I was in the left, quote, passing lane, behind several other cars going above the posted 70 speed limit. Unlike most of them, though, I always maintain a safe distance behind the car in front of me. Always. Except for the moments when it's not possible. Like when I get cut off, or if a car in front of me suddenly stops, for example. This is what happened on that day. A bright, sunny California day. The air was clear and visibility was perfect. But in my little car, I could only see the car directly in front of me when the freeway goes straight. Unlike in a pickup or SUV or something, where you can see above the cars in front of you and you can see what's going on ahead for the next half mile or so. I was following at what should have been a safe distance, while still being mindful not to slow down the cars behind me. When suddenly, the car in front of me swerved a little into the right lane to avoid hitting something in the road that they clearly hadn't seen ahead of them. In this slow motion moment, I could see for a fraction of a second that the 4 to 5 cars directly ahead of me in the left lane had all swerved and or stopped. And when I saw the giant thing in the road, I had literally no time to avoid hitting it. I couldn't swerve, there was a car right on my right side, and a wall with no shoulder on my left. This giant thing looked like a very solid, heavy trunk, or something, at least half as tall as my car. Hitting this would have been a pretty major accident, smashing the front end of my little car and causing who knows how many cars behind me, going over 70 to crash into me, and so on, into a big pileup. I saw what happened and imagined the rest, all in the single second I had before I would crash into it, hard. There was no possible way for me not to hit it, as I couldn't swerve nor completely stop. It's not possible to go from 75 miles per hour to 0 in 1 second. Like in the previous scenario, I braced for impact. And suddenly, I was past the giant trunk. It happened so fast that I couldn't even see how I got past it, but I did. In my rear view, I could see the trunk was still in my lane, but I had gone through it. Finally, another time I was on the freeway in the left lane behind a pickup with furniture in its open bed. Suddenly, because of wind, a large wooden drawer began lifting up in the truck bed, just a few feet in front of me. I couldn't swerve. Again, I had nowhere to go. I slowed down as much as I could before the big drawer would come all the way up and out of the truck bed and crash hard into my windshield because of the speed we were both traveling. Physics would tell you that at a certain point, when the drawer lifts up higher than the top of the truck bed, wind will take over and it can only come out. I knew it was about to crash into my windshield, and who knew how I would survive at such a high rate of speed? I imagined being blinded by broken glass at the same time that heavy wooden drawer entered my windshield and smashed into my head. I really thought I was about to die. I know it sounds as though I had plenty of time to react and slow way down, but it all happened in the matter of a second or two, and I didn't. I saw the drawer lift up higher than the edge of the truck bed, and then it went back down onto the floor of the truck bed, safe from an inevitable, windy, high-speed escape into my head. Again, I was saved by a miracle. I always think of these things as God saying it's not my time, and he or a guardian angel intervenes, saving me from the inescapable. But reading these glitch stories herein, I've realized my experiences really could fit here as well. So, you can believe it either way you want to, or maybe even any other way. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thanks for reading. Hey Raven, this has become one of my favorite podcasts over the past year, and the Glitch in the Matrix episodes are some of my favorites. So I finally figured it was time for me to send in some of my own. This happened in summer of 2022. I was living in a temporary sublet with an acquaintance whose apartment was shockingly messy, skittering with roaches and a cat that I was allergic to. This week was particularly hot, and with no air conditioning, I took any excuse I could to get out of the house. At the time, I was also selling a particular green item to supplement my income alongside my regular shift jobs cooking and bartending. I've lived in Brooklyn for a number of years, in the same neighborhood bouncing between apartments, like many 20-somethings, but all within about a mile radius of each other. The streets in this area are predominantly laid out in a grid pattern, and I bike almost everywhere. Because of all this, I'm pretty familiar with the area, and I find it rather easy to navigate. This is all relevant to the story, I promise. This particular night, I had gotten a text asking for a delivery. I had never met at their place before, but I was happy to get out of the house, and I mapped out the route. The address was barely a 10-minute bike ride, and basically a straight shot east about 8 blocks, and over one street to the left. Although I had a clear sense of how to get there, I decided to plug it into my phone's GPS with the audio on in my headphones, along with my music, just in case I lost track and went too far. Once I set out on my path, I was overcome with a sense of bliss. The night was warm but not too hot, and the breeze flowing over me while biking felt amazing. This route was totally flat, neither uphill nor downhill, keep this in mind. Once I got there, the exchange was quick and seamless. I remember very vividly thinking that I wished the ride had been longer, enjoying the feeling of being on a bike. I know I have autonomy, and easily could have taken it upon myself to ride around randomly for longer, but I felt a bit aimless, and figured I should just head back home. Since I had just biked this route minutes earlier and it was such a straight shot, I felt no need to turn on the navigation on the way back. I turned my playlist back on and started back the same way. I felt the same sense of bliss as I biked back. I was alone on the road and flying along. I approached a hill and I remember smiling visibly as I sped down it, feeling light and free. It took a couple of minutes before I snapped back to reality and realized I had no idea where I was. How did I end up riding downhill when I didn't bike uphill to get there? I'd gone back the exact same way I'd come, but I didn't recognize my surroundings anymore. I pulled up my GPS and found that I was in a completely different area than I should have been, and over a 20-minute ride from my house, in a completely different direction. It must be said that regardless of my side hustle at the time, I didn't partake much in smoking, and I was not high at the time. I was so confused as to how I'd gotten there, but as a believer in these things, I decided it was the universe allowing me to go for a longer ride. Not a scary glitch, but kind of wholesome and comforting. Like I had a playful spirit guide doing me a favor. Of course, I've also tried convincing myself that I must have taken a wrong turn, which obviously seems plausible. But when I map out the facts and timeline in my head, there's just no way. Biking less than 10 minutes became a 25-minute ride away, and I know I headed back the same route that I had come from. It just felt like a tiny, unexplainable gift, and I'm grateful to have experienced it. Hey Raven, this is my second glitch post. However, this one is an accumulation of just outright strange happenings, and they have all happened in the last week or so. As always, thank you for what you do. Thank you. So, a couple of days ago, I had to travel nearly 2 hours to do an assessment for the Army by train. As I was waiting for my connection train to finish the journey, I bumped into a guy as I was looking up at the terminal to try and figure out what platform I needed to be on, as this particular train station was massive. I digress. As I bumped into him, I noticed he was an average height man. He had on a beanie and a jumper on with a full face beard. He said something along the lines of, "Watch where you're going." I apologized again and continued to look up at the terminal to try and decipher it once again. The train I needed to catch was in the opposite side of the station, and the opposite direction that the aforementioned man had gone. So I headed off, music playing and trying to make my way through the sea of people in this city station. As I got to the platform I needed to be, I checked my phone for some reason or another, and was slowly walking to a bench I had glanced up at previously. As soon as I looked back at my phone, I bumped into someone. I apologized and looked up. It was the same man I had bumped into before. Same jacket, same beanie, and a full face of hair. As I stood there in utter amazement, he said, "Hey, watch where you're going." I was stunned just staring at him as he walked off. Even when boarding my train nearly 30 minutes after the bizarre incident, I couldn't get the thought out of my head. Originally, we both went in very opposite directions, and with how busy it was that day, there is no way he could have turned around and passed me without me noticing. It's still one of the most bizarre things I have seen to this day. As briefly stated in the first mini-story, I had an assessment for the Army. There was about 12 of us in one room. Not a massive deal, but a little overwhelming. Sharing a room with 12 people you don't know. Part of the assessment. We had to provide several different pieces of paperwork. I moved all the relevant sheets of paper from my personal folder to the one we were given ready for processing. I remember putting everything in there, all the paperwork I had brought with me, and I mean everything. I double-checked and it was all there. Come the next day, where we had to show all the paperwork, I come to give them my birth certificate, and it was nowhere. Instantly my thoughts start to cycle. Did I put it in? Did I even bring it? I genuinely started to question my sanity. It was only 3 days later when I arrived home did I find it in my drawer where my paperwork and birth certificate are kept. And lo and behold, there it sits, nicely folded in two on top of the set of drawers. I specifically remember moving it from my folder and putting it in the given folder. Just before writing this, I was making my bed, ready to settle down and listen to your newest compilation. I moved my cover to lay down, and I heard my metal coaster fall onto the floor. I have relatively thin carpet as I live in a very old house, so you can hear when something heavy like a metal coaster falls and makes contact with the ground. I looked for ages to find it, genuinely looking. I looked under my bed, under my TV stand, and everywhere it could have possibly gone, but nothing. It was only when I lay down to write about my previous two glitches did I see it. On my bedside table, at exactly where it should have been. In the same way I had placed it earlier today. I guess if it had rolled somewhere I couldn't have found it, the Matrix was doing me a favor? I genuinely have no idea. Again, thank you to Raven for letting me share this, and to the people that listen. If anyone is interested in the least, I did end up passing the army assessment, so possible army-related glitches coming soon. After sharing my recent glitch experience with my husband and my mom, they both acted as if I was crazy. So, I've decided to share my story here with like-minded individuals. Let me start with a little backstory. When my first husband and I were married in 2009, one of the wedding gifts we received were a nice set of oval-shaped potholders. The set included one solid dark blue holder that has one side that's silicone, or a similar material, so it could be used as a trivet. The second potholder is my absolute favorite. It's a match to the first, but it's simply made of material, no silicone. Instead of it being a solid dark blue holder, it's a dark heather blue. I've always loved this potholder and have stashed it away because I've never found another quite like it. Maybe I'm weird, but oh well. Now time for my brief story, but a glitch nonetheless. One night last week, I made my son and myself dinner. After dinner, I cleaned up as usual. Unfortunately, my Doberman has a propensity for tearing up my potholders if I leave them unattended. Thanks to my ADHD, I once again left my potholder on the countertop, but this time it was my favorite potholder. After crawling into bed that night, I heard the dog shaking her head side to side, as she does when she's shredding something. I quickly jumped up to see what she had, as I had a sneaking suspicion it was something she wasn't supposed to have. As soon as I flipped the kitchen light on, I quickly scolded myself because there, lying on the floor, was my beloved potholder and stuffing lying around. After saying a few expletives, I cleaned up the mess and returned to bed. The next morning, as I was cooking breakfast, I opened the drawer that I keep my oven mitts in to reach for a potholder, and was quite perplexed to see my oval-shaped heather blue potholder right on top of the stack. I stood there baffled for a moment before I reached to grab it. As I grabbed it, I thought that perhaps I had accidentally put the damaged potholder back in the drawer, but to my amazement, it was fully intact. I've never had two of these. How is this possible? Well, a glitch in the Matrix is the only answer. This is all true. I've always had odd, unlikely, and even seemingly impossible things happen to me. I dare not go into all of them, as I honestly believe something is attached to me. Be it an angel with a sense of humor, plain old weird karma energy, or I don't know. And I don't want to upset whatever it might be. I write this anonymously and with no disrespect. This is just to tell you about some of the many items that I've had literally disappear, never to be seen again. Even today, everyday things are not where I leave them. I've learned that I have to be aware of where I put something, keys, glasses, remote control, and still when I look for it later, not only is it not where I put it, but I might find it under other things, like a shirt or piece of paper that I had not moved. That is my day-to-day. But I've had many items really disappear. I've only over the last couple years become aware of the multiverse theories, or given it any real consideration. Maybe this is where they go. In the 1980s, I was going from car to our condo with my husband and some family members. The parking spot we'd parked in was a mere 15 or so yards from our door, but at the time this happened, I'd walked at most 5 yards from the car. I took my giant wad of a keychain from the car and held it in my hand. As we all walked toward the condo, within a matter of seconds, I realized my keys were no longer in my hands. I asked everyone to stop and help me look for them. My husband had known that I had my keys, so he assumed that I had dropped them. We all assumed that, although I knew it would have been impossible for me not to have heard a substantial clink if they dropped from my hands to the pavement, considering I had many keys and a lot of unnecessary metal keychains. There was only black pavement between the car and the condo, as I hadn't made it as far as the small grassy area. Everyone looked for about 20 minutes, including all through the car in the entire parking lot and grass, even though I hadn't been near the grass. Those keys never turned up. I had to have remade 3 car keys, house keys, a mailbox key, and other random keys, like those to my parents' house. None of my family would have taken my keys as a prank, and then never admit to it, and let me spend all that hassle to replace everything. I couldn't replace the keychains. I lived there another 7 years, and those keys were never found, not even by neighbors. My husband and I lived near San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge was celebrating an anniversary, which we attended. My husband bought me a really cool t-shirt commemorating the event, and I loved that shirt. It was just the two of us. We got into the car, and of course I had the shirt with me. I even opened it up and looked at it again in the car as we were driving home. It was dark by then, and a little breezy, so we had all the car windows rolled up. We didn't stop anywhere between the bridge and home. But you know what I'm going to say. The shirt never made it home, and I never saw that t-shirt again. When we got home, it was not in the car anywhere. And even checking and rechecking the car over the next couple years, it never turned up. This also happened with the movie rental from a video store. I'd put the VHS into the car, and by the time I got to the video store, it was gone. It was exactly the same several years later with a rented video game. Also, I had a banana disappear from a car, and no telltale smell of old banana ever appeared. These are all car-related, even though they were all in different cars, and over many years. I've lost many other things that I know were in my house, that were just never located, even after moving. Special things that I put in a special place just vanished. Of course, I've lost things that I can attribute to theft or human error, but these I can't. Are all of these many lost things in a big pile together in some other reality? I would love to hear your thoughts. So, today, Monday, January 27th, 2025, my mom was driving me to my hockey game. It was about 5:15 p.m. at sunset, and I look out my window from my car. I'm in the back seat, so I have a clear view at the right window when I look out and see a plane. I've always loved watching planes, but when I look at this one, I feel off already. Then I look above the plane and see these black strings, looking like they're holding the plane up. They seem to glitch when I look at them like a TV screen static, and now it just feels eerie. I look away for 1 second to take it in, and then look back up at the sky, and I don't see the plane. Keep in mind, it was a straight road, no turns. The plane couldn't have gone over me because it was headed a different direction, and I think it's important to say that this wasn't any normal-looking plane. It was black and white, and a little green, maybe some yellow. I feel like it was some sort of glitch in the Matrix. I'm in Canada, and I'm used to seeing white and bluish planes, not those ones. Thank you for reading my story, and thank you for your stories, as they really helped me through dark times. Well, thank you as well. Hey Raven, thank you for reading my story on your channel. I love your videos, especially the glitch videos. Thank you. This happened when I was in my late 20s. My paternal grandfather passed away when I was 18 years old. Soon after his passing, my grandmother gave me his gold chain necklace which had a crucifix on it. He never once took it off, and from the moment it was handed to me, neither did I. Well, at least it was not often that I did. I would take it off if I was going to be in water swimming or partaking in water sports, etc. It was late August, and my sister was having a birthday get-together. For context, she lives in New York, and my wife and I live in New Jersey, about an hour's drive away from one another. When we were in our car ready to go home, as I was putting my seatbelt on, I realized my chain was not around my neck. That's when I asked my wife, "Hey, did you notice I was wearing my chain earlier today?" She said that she didn't really pay much attention, as I usually have it on. Needless to say, it was gone, and I looked everywhere for this chain. All over the car in my sister's house, our house, but it wasn't there. It wasn't anywhere. I recalled that the day prior I did happen to go swimming, so I most likely did take the chain off, but I remember distinctly placing it back around my neck once I was done. This made me extremely sad and upset. This was a family heirloom handed down to me, my grandfather's chain. And now instead of passing it down to my grandson one day, I go and lose it. Now, of course, I went to the place where I went for a swim, but it was not there. Days passed. I put up a sign all around my sister's neighborhood, and even offered a cash reward. No one called, and it was just gone, as if it had vanished into thin air. 1 week later, I was getting ready for work, and as I was grabbing some clothes from my closet, I caught a glimmer of something from the corner of my eye, between the wall next to the closet and the nightstand. On the floor next to my bed, there was this tiniest of spaces. I thought to myself, it can't be, can it? It was the chain neatly folded and clasped, just lying there. Now, one would think it was there all along, right? Turns out, no. We were looking at photos from the day of my sister's birthday, and as clear as day, there it was, my chain around my neck. This is the only chain necklace I wear or have ever worn. This means that between having those pictures taken and getting into my car that day, this thing vanished from around my neck, transported an hour away, and rematerialized where we lived in New Jersey, and neatly folded itself, fully clasped, right there on my bedroom floor. This is one of the strangest, weirdest things to have ever happened to me. Thank you for reading my story, Raven. So that, my friends, was a collection of some Glitch in the Matrix stories. A collection we usually do on Mondays, though this one happened to be on Tuesday for various reasons that were stated yesterday during the live stream that I did. If you weren't there, that's okay. If you were there, awesome, thank you. It was a good time. Overall, just played some stuff. A game called For Sale, which was kind of scary. Not like too terrifying, but it had some good moments. Some really good moments, in my opinion. And then we played a game called Explore Dream Core, which was actually a Roblox game. But really leaned into the liminal and weird stuff, so it was nice. I liked that. Hopefully, if you were there, you enjoyed it as well. We do live streams on Saturdays, usually. In fact, we'll be doing another one this Saturday, going back to the liminal stuff. Don't know which liminal game we'll be playing, but expect to see some liminal stuff again. Just overall, having a good time with y'all, and yeah. Sorry if my audio wasn't great today, my voice, more than anything, not the quality, but I've been having some throat issues. I think I mentioned that back on Saturday as well, that I was having some problems. And then Sunday, I completely lost my voice, so I'm recovering from that. I don't know if I lost my voice because of the live stream on Saturday, but it happened, so, yeah. It's just nonstop sinus problems that's causing a lot of drainage, which causes my throat to get stuffed up and causes my vocal cords to crack out like that. So it's a pain, but that's life. You move on. You make the most of what you got. So hopefully you all enjoyed the stories, the glitch stories this week. If you did, please do hit that like button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, please consider subscribing. That'd be really appreciated. If you're feeling bold, you can join Patreon or memberships, get early access to content like this for as little as $1 a month. And go up from there depending on what you want and how you get it, or what you want to get, how you get it. Huh. Anyways, those two things help support the channel. You can also go to coffee.com/astheravendreams, that's ko-fi.com/astheravendreams, and order a signed copy of my novel. I have my final copies that I've ordered, getting shipped out here. So yeah, got a few left if you want to order them. You don't have to. But I sign them and give you all stickers. And sometimes keychains, or pins, depending on what number you are. There's a method to it, so. Anyways, you can also do a super thanks, which is a tip to the channel. Never expected, always appreciated. You can share the video on other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, MySpace if you still got it. I'm on a few of those. You can typically find me at @RavensDreamYT. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say, so. Oh, you know what? I do. You can listen on Spotify and Pandora and Apple and Audible, all those things, if you want to. Yeah. Lastly, you can also do what we call the Word of the Week. Every week I give you a word, you guys leave the word in a comment, I screenshot those comments and put them at the end of the next week's Glitch video. So, last week, the word of the week was anomaly, and a good number of you commented with the word. On the screen right now, and several moments prior to now, is a collection of all the people who used last week's word of the week in a comment. As such, they are featured here, and I say thank you to each and every single one of you who did. If you didn't, that's totally okay, but these guys did, so... Sorry, these people did. All of these people went above and beyond, left a comment with the word of the week, and I appreciate them for that. Now, this week the word of the week is ruminate. It's a fun word. R-U-M-I-N-A-T-E. Oops. It means to go over in the mind repeatedly and often, casually or slowly. So, to really think about things. It also means to chew repeatedly for an extended period, so if you're just chewing on that salad for minutes at a time, you're ruminating it. Use it in a sentence and get featured next week. So, again, thank you to everyone who listened to this far. Thank you to all of you. I hope you know that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love and sleep well.